Texans lose the biggest game of the year, and it's on to the wild card. How are they sitting heading into that race? And have the Texans already played their best ball? Let's get into that. Let's hear from DeMeco Ryans and a lot more in the post-Week 12 wrap-up of the Locker Room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker Room.
12 down, 6 to go. It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on the number one source for radio content in Houston, In the Loop on Sports Radio 610. Reaction Monday was wild today. Appreciate everyone for coming through, whether it was on Twitch, YouTube, Odyssey app, all that. Appreciate everyone for coming through. It was an emotional one, to say the very least. We're going to put a bow on the Jacksonville issues, air out our final grievances before we go on to Denver. We're going to take a look at the state of the NFL. We do this after every Monday night football game here in the Locker Room, and then Cody Stutes is going to join me, and we're just going to kind of cuss and discuss and ask the question of the day. Have the Texans already played their best football? People talk about topping out. People talk about peaking at the right time. A lot of times you can roll your eyes to that, but I think it's a fair question to ask. And the question kind of came to me when there were a few people, I'm not going to say like people were saying or anything like that, but there are a few people who just, they don't seem capable of being disappointed by the Texans this year because their expectations were so low. It's almost like, oh, well, they're playing with house money. Whatever happens, it's really in this league, in the NFL, that's what we're doing. Like, that's not how this league works. It's a year-to-year league. It's a week-to-week league. So if you're still rolling and you're still judging the Houston Texans and DeMeco Ryans on the David Culley, Lovie Smith scale, and you're judging CJ Stroud on the Davis Mills, Tyrod Taylor scale, why? You don't have to do that. And you shouldn't do that. It's a good football team. This team could easily be better off than where they are right now. And this is a good squad. So I'm not ready to do that. I don't know if you are, but we'll talk to Cody Stutes as well and get into that. Be sure to subscribe, like, right along as well. State of the NFL through 12 weeks. 15 teams have a winning record. 2 teams are at 500. And 15 teams have a losing record. So the Texans are right there in that top half of the league. It's a clean split. And some people say, is it always like that? No, it's not. But right now, through 12 weeks, we have a clean split with the Texans in the mix, fighting for their lives when it comes to the wild card. And it starts this week against the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos, a team that looked like they were dead in the water. They've won 5 straight games, I believe. They're playing better. The offense, back half of the league when it comes to yards, back half of the league when it comes to passing yards, rush the ball at a pretty average level. Russell Wilson kind of managing games. He's playing better than he was last year. Denver's basically close to what they should have been last year had they not hired Nathaniel Hackett. I don't look at Denver and say, this is a real threat. I know they beat the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes was sick. I think he was throwing up at halftime. They've beat some okay teams, probably closer to the Texans than the Texans are the Chiefs. But that's where they're at there. I'm going to bring on Cody Stutes now. Cody Stutes, Houston football. He's at every press conference. He covers the squad as good as anyone. Cody, Reaction Monday. We're going to get into the final grievances with DeMeco Ryans, etc. And then we'll get into whether or not you think the Texans have played their best ball, and we'll hear from DeMeco Ryans. But what do you think about the notion that the Texans are playing with house money and, hey, if I would have told you this, that type of thing? Where's your mind at when people start doing that?
If you want to operate like this is the beginning of the year, like this is training camp, and that's all your expectations ever had, like, why should anyone ever be satisfied when you get something good. You know what you want when you get something good? You want some more of that good stuff. Expectations change, especially in sports for teams. Like, they've played really good football, so when they don't play really good football, you should be disappointed in the Texans. If you're satisfied, that's fine. You might have a new floor, but that doesn't mean that the ceiling should stop getting raised. The ceiling should continue to get raised for this team. The expectations should be higher, much higher than what they were the first time you played the win-win, loss-loss game with the schedule when it came out. Like, your expectations have to change based off of what you've seen from this team. And if they haven't, why are you settling?
Yeah, I don't think you should settle. You have a really good quarterback right now, so no, I don't think the house money thing makes sense. I don't think, especially in this league, as I've said.
There's also no such thing as house money. Like, that's not a real thing. Money has an owner, and it's whoever has possession of it. Like, you never own somebody else's money. Once you have it, it's your money.
Now you're just getting philosophical. I don't know what the hell you're saying there. Goodness gracious. Say that again.
House money doesn't exist. When you have money, you're the owner of it. You can't own somebody else's money. It's your money. I drop knowledge on here. That's all I do.
Oh my God. So let's air out our final grievances with the Jags. Let's get this out of your system. And it's a process. And I know that a lot of you know this, especially with me. Post game, there's a certain vibe. A lot of times that vibe matches with after you sleep on it as good as you can sleep before Reaction Monday. Sometimes I'm too excited to even be able to sleep. Then you get to step back. That's what this is for. You look at the shape of the league. You get like the big picture in front of you, and you truly go on to the next squad. And some of the things that you initially thought right after the game, some of those stick around. Some of them don't. But there are a few things I want to get off my chest with Jacksonville, and then I want to get yours. But I got three main things that I want to, the final grievances, if you will, before I truly go on to Denver and focus completely on the wild card chase, which is kind of where my mind's been all year. I've been focusing more so on the wild card, and if the division happened, it happened. But that's been my main focus, and it's kind of lined up decently for the Texans. But my final grievances, and I think this one is significant because I don't think this one goes away. I don't know if they can truly get rid of this. And quite frankly, I think this might be something that lingers for the next few years, especially once the salaries increase and some of these extensions go up. This offensive line sucks. Like, there's no real way to like say it nicely. Like, at this point, you're 12 weeks through the season. They're not consistent. They don't run block well. Even when you feel like you have your guys in there, they don't look great. The guys that you rely on the most are the most inconsistent. We can talk about reasons. We can talk about Laramie Tunsil maybe having an injury. We can talk like all kinds of things. We can talk about different centers, although I think the centers have actually done a decent job given what you expect. But this offensive line stinks, and I just don't know what the solution is for it. I really thought that maybe they were building something these last couple of weeks. Maybe it was fool's gold against two bad rush defenses. But for whatever reason, Bobby Slowick doesn't trust him to consistently run the rock. And when it's really wild that in the two meetings that you faced Jacksonville, you actually, the offensive line was actually better when Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard didn't play than it was when they did. And I know Titus didn't play the whole time, but again, this offensive line's not good. They stink. And when you start factoring in what you're investing in it and whether or not you actually think these guys that you have as much invested in are going to get better, it's hard to imagine. The interior can get better. Who knows what happens when Kenyon Green comes back? Jared Patterson, him and Juice Scruggs competing. That's going to be fun. Kendrick Green, like, you can get some competition in the interior and maybe figure something out. Maybe Titus goes to tackle and he's okay. Maybe. But the offensive line's a problem, man. And it's been a problem even going back to when B.O.B. was investing in the offensive line. They stink. They're not good.
And they're pot committed to roughly these guys. I mean, there's not a lot of opportunity to change things with this offensive line. They extended Shaq Mason before he ever played a down for this team, which was something that was not necessary at all. Laramie Tunsil got a giant contract. Titus Howard got a contract probably before he should have gotten the contract. And so you're stuck with those three guys. And then Kenyon Green's a former first-round pick. I know he's going into his third year next year. You're not stuck with him necessarily, but Scruggs isn't going anywhere. Patterson's not going anywhere. So, like, these are the guys. It's funny you talked about that. You mentioned the centers, and it was like the centers have played okay. That should be the position that is 5 out of 5 in the performance for where this offensive line is supposed to be week in, week out. Too often, the center's been the best offensive lineman week in and week out for this Texans team. And that shouldn't be the case when you think about the investment that they have at the left tackle spot, with the investment that they have at the right guard spot, with Titus Howard playing left guard. Like, the center shouldn't be the best player on the offensive line more than once or twice this season. And I'd argue the center's been the best player on the offensive line probably the majority of the games over the course of this season. And that just goes to show you how much lower the production has been for a guy that was supposed to be really good in Shaq Mason, a guy that was supposed to be really good in Laramie Tunsil. Titus Howard can't play guard. They've got to stop doing this. Bill O'Brien proved to us he couldn't play guard. I don't know why he's still playing guard. I understand.
He did play good last year against Kansas City, if we're being fair.
Well, anybody can have a game. Okay? It's what the NFL's littered with thousands of names that have had one game. I don't know how
good of a tackle he is.
He's better. You're not wrong about that, but I'll tell you this much: he's better at right tackle than he is at left guard. And then look, good. They got George Fant here. Fant's fine at right tackle, but like
he's done a great job for what you expect and what you want. George Fant's done an excellent job.
He's not the long-term solution at right tackle, unfortunately. Like, you've already committed to that. So,
and I think kind of yesterday the whole best 5 thing kind of died, because if you are going to go with your best 5 at this point, I think it comes down to it now. And this is me. I'm not sitting there watching tape with your buddy, the offensive line coach who you like to chat with, and all the other coaches. But if you're talking best 5, then the question now has to come down to, assuming that Titus Howard isn't too hurt and we haven't got a status on that, is he better than George Fant? Because if he's not, he doesn't need to be on the football field, because Juice Scruggs, there wasn't like a massive drop-off. Maybe there's something that someone can find out, but I would much rather – I damn sure didn't say, damn, they sure could use Titus Howard at guard. I didn't feel that way when Juice came in. So if the goal has been to put the best 5 in, let's see if Juice Scruggs can build on this and become even better, because Titus Howard's been at guard all season long when he's been on the field. And if he's not better than George Fant, then let him be your swing tackle and figure stuff out. But at this point, the best 5 thing, Titus Howard over Juice Scruggs, to my haven't watched the film eyes, but I've talked to guys that have, that's gone. I think that I'd rather have Juice at guard than Titus.
Well, to play better than Titus Howard at left guard, Juice doesn't have to clear a big. It's not a big bar to clear. Like, I mean, he doesn't even have to maybe jump over it. He could do like the Kane step over the top rope thing. Like you don't have to jump over the situation to play better than the way Titus has played at left guard. He's not a left guard. Like Scruggs played left guard in training camp. Like they were prepping him to be in the left guard mix if Quessenberry stayed healthy or Patterson played well at center. Like, they were prepping Scruggs to be in the left guard mix. And they got hurt against the Saints, and he wasn't available. This guy came in there and played, like you mentioned, like, hey, I don't know exactly how well he did. Well, he didn't stand out in a bad way. And he hadn't played football in 14 weeks.
And Titus was before that.
He hadn't played football in 14 weeks.
Yeah, had to rehab, had to figure out how to get on the field, and he got on the field, and he did his thing. So if we're doing best 5, again, Titus, and that's the first big takeaway.
Josh Jones played better at left guard than Titus did.
Derek says nobody had us winning 6 games. We good, we straight. I had them winning 9. And they ran the damn promo on the radio for a few weeks. So I had them winning 9, and I don't give a damn if I had them winning 2. Based on what we've seen, I'm not sitting here functioning like that. So I don't really care what they were projected, what it was, anything like that at all. I'm with you on the offensive, on the O-line thing. And Shaq Mason that was weird because you made a trade for him. He'd never played in this system. And I'm not saying he's terrible. He's been fine. He's been serviceable. Really, he's been there more than Tunsil and Howard have been. So he's been on the field, but you haven't seen him in this system. He's an aging player and he gets an extension. Is that just like why? And I'm not trying to take away from Caserio. Caserio's done an excellent job, but there might be a weak spot when it comes to offensive line evaluation. I said today, and Figgy clipped me on it, that I guess his name is Shaq Olajuwon Mason, which is cool, but it's more Shaq in Phoenix and Olajuwon on the Raptors. Like if we're being honest, it's not. I mean, that's not the Diesel. That's the big cactus and Hakeem in those shape up socks. Let's be serious.
It's strange too, because I watched one of these offensive line film, accounts a couple weeks ago, and they were like, Shaq Mason's really balling, and I was like, are we watching Tampa film? Are we watching Patriots film? Because I don't believe him he is not playing to the level of what you expected when you traded for him. Yeah. Next part, he's not playing to the contract. He's the 12th highest paid guard in football. He's not like the 12th best guard in football. He's worse.
And here's the thing, like it has to be at this point, it has to be a CJ saves all butts, or you find some gems and you figure out what you want to do with these high price guys. Because I hear people saying, well, they need to offensive line in the draft. Hell no, not with all you've invested here. You've seen CJ win games without these guys. Like they're either going to have to play better or you're going to have to make do and maybe ask CJ to do some things, because right now you need D linemen. You're going to need corners. I push receivers a little bit back. Probably going to need a stud linebacker. Safety, I don't know. Jimmy Ward, love him. He's obviously very important. Don't know how much you can rely on him. Like it is the offensive line. That's not one of those things that you're looking at right now.
And you can't spend money on it either because you've already committed a crap ton of money and you need to spend that money elsewhere. You need to spend that money in other spots.
The extensions to Mason and Howard right now, they don't matter, but it's going to start mattering once you start dividing up that pie. And those are just, they're very suspect. Now it does help when you hit on a Patterson and hopefully you hit on a Juice Scruggs. It kind of helps cancel it out, but man, we'll see what Titus looks like when he goes back to tackle. I just think some of the stuff he's doing is not representative of anything. And I'm not asking you, I'm just asking for you to be missed when a guy is out for a few months and comes in and makes his debut and he looks better or at least as good as you did. I'm not asking for a lot. And he's giving away all these tickets and stuff. Like he's doing too much. Asking for subscriptions for tickets. I gave away 200 tickets last year to folks. I wasn't saying, hey, subscribe. Like that's corny. That looks pretty weird too.
And just to cut this off, because I know people are going to say it, and I know people have said it in the chat already.
Hopefully he's good at right tackle. Brown Chubber saying get a second for him. What the hell are you doing?
You can't trade him. The money is it's $30 million in dead cap. If you trade him, you can't trade him. You can't trade him. You can't trade him. You can't trade Laramie Tunsil.
Second for Titus Howard. Are you kidding me? Aaron Rodgers went for 2 seconds. I mean, come on, brother. Next final grievance, and I have 3. The Bobby Slowick weirdness is strange to me. Now maybe he just knows a lot more than I do, and I just went off on the offensive line. But I did think that they were more capable of running the football than just completely abandoning it yesterday. And I did think that Devin Singletary was building something the previous 2 weeks with 150 yards 2 weeks ago and then 100 yards last week, to the point where at the very least, like 6 carries for him and 5 for Pierce doesn't make sense. And if Dameon Pierce is a negative, hear me out on this. If Dameon Pierce is going to prevent you from making Devin Singletary by far your main focal running back, the main focal point on offense, then he's a distraction for Bobby Slowick. And I would rather just have Boone in there. If you're not going to just like fill in accordingly with Dameon Pierce, then I don't know. It almost feels like you're handcuffing yourself. I thought that they kind of abandoned the run a little bit too much. And I think if there's going to be 11 carries with the running backs, I need to see like 80% from Singletary. I don't even think I like Dameon Pierce on short yardage more than Singletary. I think Singletary hits the hole harder. I know he got stuck a couple of times on the goal line. I mean, that happened, though, and it actually set up CJ's boot. So you can look at it that way. But at this point, Bobby Slowick, from throwing on 3rd and 4th down, almost pissing away the Cincinnati game, I think he's a future head coach. I will acknowledge that he's a first-year offensive coordinator, but some of the weird stuff he's done this year is just do we charge it to inexperience? Like, what are we doing here?
I thought Dameon Pierce got the perfect number of carries for what we expected. It was 5. I just wish Devin Singletary got 16 more. I wish he had 20 carries. Like if there were 30 carries and Singletary had 20 of them and Pierce had 5 and CJ had 5, I'd be fine with it. Like Dameon Pierce getting 5 carries, that's more than enough for Dameon Pierce for the level of player that he's been in this system for this offense. But Singletary getting 6 is a ridiculous amount. This game was never more than a 2-score situation after the Texans scored their first touchdown. Like it was a 1-score game the entire time, with the exception of when you never got out of the ability to run the football. This wasn't the Colts game where they were down 14-0 to begin the game.
Here's the other thing that really just kind of confuses me, and I think it was you. Sunday was kind of a blur because I got in at 3 a.m. and then I covered the game from the crib because it was just such a cluster of 9 hours straight of driving. I think it was you who said that the Mike Boone being inactive was weird.
Very strange.
Yeah, and that's my thing. So if you're going to abandon the run and you're going to be in like this spread them out type of offense, I know that he hasn't like set the world on fire, but there's been a couple of times, whether it's, an 11 run yard here or a 10-yard run here or an out route here, where when they're in their most urgent situations on offense and they're the most dependent on the pass, that Mike Boone has been on the field and he's done a decent job. So I don't understand why Mike Boone is inactive. And again, if Singletary goes down and Mike Boone has to be your running back every time, like the whole time, it's not ideal. But we're talking about you're only giving the running backs the rock 11 times. And a lot of times you're not even making it like a thought that you're going to run the rock. Like they're in these 3rd and 1s and 4th and 1s, and they're sitting there going in empty.
I have a question for you about why they've operated this way. And the last 2 weeks hurts the validity of the question, but I think it's a worthwhile question. Are they too focused on being explosive after Carolina that they try too hard to hit some of these explosive plays and call some of these explosive plays when something easy and simple would work better? Like CJ goes to the podium, says, we got to be more explosive. The next week they throw on like 18 and 21 first downs. And don't get me wrong, it works. But then they ran the ball pretty well.
They gave Devin Singletary the rock 30 times against Cincinnati, and I think it was 20 the next week after that. So I don't know. I think that they're overly aggressive on 3rd and 4th at times, and it damn near cost them a game against Cincinnati. Easily could have done that.
I've got to go back and look at every 4th down play they've had this year, because I feel like the 4th down calls have been atrocious all year.
We could probably go through them off the top of the dome. I mean, are we even going to count the Baltimore game? They had the 2 runs with Pierce, right? No, they had the CJ Stroud went back and got hit, and
they tried to throw it to Beck.
Yeah, they tried to throw it to Beck in the flats. He went down. Then they got near midfield in the second half, and I think they tried to run it with Pierce to the right.
That's when they accidentally subbed when they didn't mean to sub.
Yeah, and they ran with Pierce to the right. Correct?
Yeah, they got 8 up.
The Colts, they were in a lot of mop up, so that's kind of just like whatever.
I throw the Colts game out from understanding this team because they were down 14-0 before they woke up. So I throw this one out. I throw
Jags game. I don't remember if they had a fourth down or not. They might have had a 4th and goal that they handed to Pierce. I don't know if it was 4th and goal or not. Pittsburgh, don't remember any 4th down plays on Pittsburgh. And then Cincinnati, you had the thirds, the weird 3rd and 3s. But it does feel like, and that was what Bobby Slowick told you was his worst call of the year.
Yeah, the interception play.
So I like Bobby Slowick. He's a first coordinator.
You know what?
Offensive line kind of lets him down. I just didn't understand this week at all.
You know what Bobby Slowick does, it feels like to me? It feels like because I wonder if it'd be different if there was an offensive-minded head coach, but he called the plays. We don't see that a lot in the NFL, but we see it sometimes.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'd be different if he wasn't the top offensive guy in the building, but it feels like he just gets stuck in a game. I think about Atlanta when he was running the ball in weird times. I was thinking about Carolina when they're just like they couldn't get stuff going. It feels like if it's not clicking, if they're not in a rhythm by mid-game, by like basically that second quarter or so, he kind of gets stuck and he just doesn't know how to pull himself up. Like the plane's going down and he just doesn't know how to pull up and get out of the tailspin unless CJ creates and does something incredible, sort of make him right.
Jacory says Slowick has been in his bag, but he seems to get ADHD and his attention goes elsewhere. His tempo goes from elite to bummy sometimes and gets too aggressive. I can agree with that. Again, we'll see where it goes from there. Final grievance, and I want to get this one out of the way. I want to move on from this quickly. The decision to kick the field goal was asinine to me. It was absolute silliness for me. I do not understand why it wasn't as close as people are acting like it was. Like he got everything he had into it. It's not a distance thing. Like it's not like he's trying to hit a line. He has to get it a couple feet more up. And then it was not like it was dumb. And I said it at the time and I'll say it now. The number 12, what does the number 12 mean to you?
Well, that's how many yards they had to go on 4th down.
Okay. They had to go 12 yards on 4th down, correct?
Mm-hmm.
They had 12 plays of over 12 yards on Sunday. They also had an 11-yard CJ Stroud scramble. That was just on that one game. They had 12 yards. 12-yard plays 12 times, a dozen. Amendola's never made a kick over 50. And this is how I'll weigh the decision. And I don't function in hindsight when it comes to there is not a single person in the world, had he gone for that on 4th and 12, that would have said, damn, he really should have kicked the field goal with Amendola.
Yeah.
Like there's nobody in the world. Like, and that's a broad statement because I don't like to generalize, but literally I could say the lid on this cup is red and some Jamoke in here would disagree with me.
Looks
or my hat
orange.
is red. Huh?
Looks kind of orange.
Or this is a gray hoodie. Someone would disagree with me. There is not a single person in the world, in the Monday morning quarterback that we live in, the Monday morning quarterback world that we function in, the Monday morning quarterback world that we participate in, that if he would have gone for that on 4th and 12, would have said, what the hell was that? I probably would have kicked a 58-yard, try to kick a 58-yard field goal with Matt Amendola. Not one.
So I wrote about this at Houston Football. You want to know, and this is something that coaches lose their mind about sometimes because people just look at numbers and they don't add context to the numbers. So you want to know what the field goal success rate of 55 plus yard kicks is in the NFL, it's like around 54, almost 60%. Okay. The success rate in the NFL since 2013 on 4th and 12 is 31%.
Okay, say that one more time. Say what the
Okay.
the kick is.
55 plus in the NFL in the past, I think 3 or 4 years, where kickers have been as good as they've ever been, is about 45 to 55% on any given day. Sometimes it gets up to 60% depending on how far it is.
You know what
Okay.
Justin Tucker's career is? 50 plus.
Hold on. Let me finish. 4th and 12 in the NFL since 2013. Every 4th and 12 situation in the NFL since 2013, 31%. So they're just raw numbers. Some idiot would probably tell you kick. Now you put context to it. Offensive Rookie of the Year, MVP candidate versus guy who's never made a field goal over 50 yards. It's a pretty easy decision for me.
Justin Tucker on 50 plus in his career is 58 of 85. That is a kicking goat. 58 of 85.
That's a Hall of Fame kicker.
If it's Fairbairn, 58, cool. Okay, I understand.
If it's that guy in Philadelphia that made a 59-yarder in the middle of a rainstorm later that day, if it's him, go for it. But it's like he hadn't made a 50. Like, I understand that it was straight. It's not straight usually.
It wasn't as close as people are acting. It needed to be higher. As soon as it gets higher, then it goes down quicker. It wasn't that close. Like, you took the ball out of CJ Stroud's hands. You took the ball out of his hands. Now, should CJ have picked up more yardage there and then maybe made it more of a decision? Sure. I don't know. Maybe the play call. But it made no sense to kick that field goal. That was stupid. Like, and that's the first time where I've said DeMeco made an idiotic decision. That was dumb.
It also made no sense to rush him out there and try to kick it initially. Doug Peterson called a timeout and bailed them out of it. It made no sense to run him out there in a hurry and try to kick the ball.
No, you should have called your timeout because your timeout wasn't going to have anything to do with anything. Like, because you'd already killed your other two. Like, you should have thought about it. And if I'm a Jacksonville fan, I'm sitting there saying, why in the hell did Doug Peterson call this timeout? Because now the Texans are going to do the right thing and they're going to rush CJ Stroud out there.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what in the hell that was. I don't care if it hit the crossbar. I don't care if it went through. Like, I don't like the decision there to kick a 58-yarder with Matt Amendola. There might even be a situation where you don't even do it with Fairbairn, which I doubt. But I mean, I don't even know that that's like a 100% given. Like, you have a guy who's cooking. You have receivers who are doing their thing. You have a guy who's done the unthinkable multiple times this season. Like, which is more crazy? Scoring a game-winning touchdown with 42 seconds left, or picking up a 4th and 12?
Or picking up 20 yards and at least making it somewhat like you run out of time throwing it to the end zone and you try to kick it on 4th down after you've picked up 20 or 30 yards. Like, I live with it, but I don't know.
This is the other thing that I thought that, and going back to the Cincinnati game, you can make a case that one of the biggest plays of that game was the fact that I think it was Noah. Noah picked up an extra 15, 20 yards to get closer on that attempt for Amendola on that final pass, because I think he was right at like 49, 50-ish. And then he picked up an extra 15, and whatever the field goal ended up being, you ended up like surviving there because Amendola kicked it a little bit closer. But yeah, I absolutely did not like that decision. I thought it was silly. I thought it was foolish. I don't think there's any statistic that makes it right. I don't like hitting the crossbar is somehow supposed to like justify it. No, it wasn't. It was off the front. Like, it was like the front of the rim and on a basketball hoop, and it had to go there. It was not a good decision. And when is Fairbairn coming back? Hopefully he's going to be ready to go, because this is his last week. This is 4 weeks, right, where he's eligible.
Yes, I believe so.
We have Cincinnati, Arizona, this game, and now Denver without Fairbairn. So That'll be 4 weeks. The activation window will be there. I dread the Amendola situation. And I've heard some people like praising it. I think it was just trash. I mean, I want to move past this very quickly. I just thought that was really weird.
Can I say a quick thing about Kaimi Fairbairn?
Yeah.
Do you ever remember a kicker that gets as hurt as he does?
I
mean, I feel like most kickers play 16 to 17 or 17.
He got hurt. When's the last time he got hurt? He got hurt.
I mean, he's been hurt twice this year already. He was down in the preseason for a minute.
Yeah, and then there's been times where they've had to go without him before.
He was hurt in 2021. Like he pops up on the injury report. He got hurt in the middle of a game.
Who the hell was it that kicked in 2021? I'm trying to remember that guy's name. God.
Joey Sly, the kicker guy.
He made a long ass one too.
He's still kicking.
Yeah.
I mean, Fairbairn's one of the most expensive kickers in football. He feels like he's always hurt.
Well, feels like I really missed him.
Yeah. You've come to appreciate kicking a whole hell of a lot more.
Kicking and punting and all that.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So I got some breaking news here about the Texans. And no, it's not about any signing or anything like that. I don't have like a hot take. Jacob asks what I think about Derek Barnett getting claimed off waivers. I don't think a ton. It's a body. We'll see what happens. Do you have any thoughts on it?
I mean, the Eagles had no use for him after him being around for 7 years, so I can't imagine there's a lot left in the tank there.
Yeah. So, but I mean if he can pressure the quarterback maybe twice a game, that might be an improvement from what we saw yesterday.
He'd lead the team in pressures if he did that. I've been one of the biggest Will Anderson defenders in the league, and this guy is out here getting worked by a rookie tackle from Oklahoma.
Look,
that never like that kid's good. Look. Don't get me wrong, that kid's good, but that kid's never seen anything like Will Anderson. He's out there just hammering Will Anderson every time.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of stuff that Will does in run coverage. I love Will Anderson. He's a friend of the show. I think he's great. I think he's going to be great. I don't regret the trade or anything like that. But when you see Josh Allen, punking Laramie Tunsil, and then you see Cam Robinson crying with his head down, and Will Anderson's not eating, and Trevor Lawrence is not pressured, that just can't happen. Can't happen. And you like, it's a contract year. You want to have a breakout year. Jonathan Grenard, you got to beat up on a backup left tackle. You got to beat up on a backup left tackle. Walker Little was so bad at tackle, they drafted this kid in the first round from Oklahoma, and they played Little at guard. And then the Jacksonville people were beside themselves when they had to kick Little out. Like, it was like, oh no, what are they going to do? Like, and from Will Anderson's standpoint, look, I was promised something a little bit closer to JJ. It's actually a little bit closer to Clowney. He's really good at stopping the run. He just doesn't have pass rush moves to go out there and get the quarterback yet. I really just thank God that they didn't draft Aiden Hutchinson, because I think they might be a Super Bowl favorite if they had Hutchinson and
the Jaguars. You mean?
Yes.
Yeah. I would put them right behind Kansas City, and
I don't even know if they'd be behind them with that.
And I'd put them behind Miami with Hutchinson.
Man, I can't even imagine what that would look like, but I'm very thankful that they did not do that. So the breaking news is I think that Jalen Pitre played a hell of a game yesterday.
Oh.
And here's why. Because my evaluation of Jalen Pitre has changed. I am no longer evaluating him like he's a really good safety. He is officially on the Jonathan Owens scale, to where I am setting realistic. People are talking about like, hey, we didn't expect the Texans to do this, so they're doing this. Me and Lopez made a pact today on In the Loop. We are now evaluating Jalen Pitre like he's Kendrick Green or Hansen or I don't know, Shaq Griffin. I no longer even consider Jalen Pitre to be like a really good player. So my standards have dropped. And this is motivated by my buddy Jean-Jacques Taylor, who once told a Cowboys player when they were getting mad at him, do you want me to change the way that I evaluate you? Or do you want me to treat you like the guy who just worked his way into the league a few years ago and was just a nickel corner? Do you want me to evaluate you like a starter, or do you want me to evaluate you as just that nickel corner? And the guy said, that's a good point. I have changed my expectations for Jalen Pitre. I actually think he played a hell of a game, and I don't expect much from him. He is on the Jonathan Owens. He is on the let's just think about some guys. He is on the Andrew Beck. He is on that scale now to where the way I look at Jalen Pitre is changing. Maybe he can win it back, but that is a liability in coverage. And last year, I think I got in an argument with someone about Jalen Pitre because they were talking about Pro Bowl, All Pro. And I was like, brother, if you watch this guy play all season long and you're trying to say that he's an All Pro or Pro Bowler, then it'd be one thing if you don't watch him and you just look at his stats and say that. But that was crazy to begin with. But my evaluation has changed. I don't expect much from Jalen Pitre. He played a fine game yesterday. As a matter of fact, if he gets burned just once a game, then I'm satisfied. If it's not twice. Now, he got burned and that guy dropped it in the sun. And there's some people who say that Tavier Thomas at the end of the first half, if Jalen Pitre had an awareness rating of over 6 on Madden, he probably would have been over the top and been able to help, but he was just in no man's land. A lot of times they'll say, well, where are you supposed to be? Where are you supposed to be in coverage? Safeties are supposed to have instincts. You're supposed to feel the play out to where if there's not a threat in front of you, you go to the biggest threat, or that his instincts, his awareness. If Madden players, help me out here. What is Jalen Pitre's awareness in Madden? For real, I want some of y'all to look this up, please. I'm being serious because I don't play Madden. I go back to like the PS2 days, back in the old days when you had to go to GameStop. What is his awareness rating in Madden? Because if it's over 59, then Madden is still unrealistic. And then Aaron Wilson asks him, that he's showing signs of being a bit player too. And I like Jalen Pitre, but he's showing signs of being kind of a bit player because Aaron Wilson asked him, hey, what and Brown Chubby Bear saying he hadn't been the same since he took that hit in Baltimore. Brother, he was late on the Zay Flowers on the sidelines before that, and he got trucked on that. And in the New England preseason game, he had one of the most unaware plays that I've seen where he jumped to the side. So no, that's not true. He was getting cooked before that happened. Go back and watch the New England play on the sideline where he just jumps to the side and he's nowhere to be found. Go watch that Zay Flowers long toss against Baltimore, and then watch the next play when Dobbins, I think, scores a touchdown and he gets thrown down there. No, it's not the injury. It's not the injury. That is not true. I've been watching this for a while, but but when Aaron Wilson asked him, what do y'all need to do to figure it out? You know what he said? His awareness is 78. Damn. Holy crap. Woo-hoo. Man, he must know somebody in those ratings. My, woo. Oh, damn. Man, oh my goodness, 78. But when Aaron Wilson asked him what he needed to do, he said, we need to communicate more. Communicate on what? Like the plays that he's not making, he's whipping on tackles. He's late coming over. Like, does someone need to tell you what a safety's supposed to do? He hasn't been good, man. I'm sorry. So I've changed it. My evaluation of Jalen Pitre has changed. I hope that he proves me wrong, but I'm over it. JM says I'm going overboard on the Pitre take. Okay. All right. I mean, if you think I'm going overboard, that's fine.
You know what? I
disagree. I disagree. I don't know what you're watching.
You know what I was sitting there doing?
Board on it.
You know what I was sitting there thinking in the middle of Sunday Night Football, as Mike Tirico is like losing it over how impressive Kyle Hamilton is, I was thinking to myself, man, sure would be nice to have Kyle Hamilton instead of Kenyon Green, and then they could have done something else with the second round pick instead of Jalen Pitre.
Yeah, and Kyle Hamilton's elite right now. It's
like how
to begin with.
Like how nice would Kyle Hamilton and Boya Mafe, who has 7 sacks for the Seahawks in his second year, like how nice would those two guys be on this team right now?
Yeah, I just if you think that I'm going too hard on Jalen Pitre, goodness gracious, man, I don't know what to say. I don't expect much anymore. So.
I think you're gonna play DeMeco, but it's rare to have DeMeco go kind of over and really kind of dial in and super praise one guy for what he does and how he brings things together and stuff. He got asked about the absence of Jimmy Pitre, and I mean, he basically Jimmy Ward, excuse me.
No, that's blatant. It's blatantly obvious. Like it's a damn shame that Jimmy's just kind of either having some bad luck or he's he's getting a little bit older. But no, the importance of Jimmy Ward from a communication standpoint, from a versatility standpoint, from a being able to cover up Jalen Pitre's flaws standpoint, all that, from a physicality standpoint, yeah, it is very clear.
Yeah.
Very, very clear. But you know what happens though? Like and this is the difference between what you see from Pitre and what you see from Cashman. Like it seems like Pitre, like in order to be able to fully hide him, and you can't really do it like to the fullest extent if you've actually watched him play. When Blake Cashman is without his linebackers, he steps his game up and ties the franchise record for tackles. When he's without Perriman and he's without Toto and the guys around him and stuff like that, he stepped it up and he had 19 tackles. When Jimmy Ward's not out there, I don't want to say Jalen Pitre looks lost. I'll say he looks more lost. Like it's rough. I'll lay off Jalen Pitre right now, but you will never hear me. This is the last time I'm doing this. I have changed my expectations for Jalen Pitre to where I just don't want him to play awful. That's it. That's where I'm at.
It's fair.
Sorry. It's where I'm at. So let's get into we'll hear from DeMeco in a sec. You were there. What were your biggest takeaways from what DeMeco Ryans had to say? You're at all the press conferences.
The praise of Jimmy Ward was very interesting. It's rare that DeMeco goes to that level to praise and talk about how important a guy is. He said they're going to stick with Matt Amendola, and then 2 hours later, the team waived Matt Amendola. And so it's like, I don't know if that's I
heard they're going to do roster moves and then bring him back.
Sure. But if that's going to be the case, maybe the GM gives the head coach the heads up and it's like, hey, like maybe don't say we're going to keep him. Just, say, we're going to work and get better or something. I thought that was kind of funny. He the first time he smiled in the press conference, in my opinion, the first time he actually kind of like had an exhale, like, "Hey, I'm excited to talk about this question," was when I asked him about Juice Scruggs, and he was like, "Hey, I thought he did a good job, and hadn't played football in a long time, and he did well." So I thought that was interesting. And the big comment, he was asked to kind of think ahead to the Broncos, and he's like, I'm not worried about the Broncos. We have to take care of ourselves, and we have to take care of what we do before we worry about the other team. And I thought that's something he's kind of harped on over the course of the year.
Devin Frankisaskis talking about Jalen Pitre, talking about his tackling. Appreciate you, Devin. Kareem says Petre's awful, laying him to him more. Angelica Carter, y'all so fake and fickle. Who's y'all? Y'all praising Jalen Pitre last year and this offseason. Now y'all bashing him and wishing y'all drafted Kyle Hamilton. First of all, ma'am, I thought that he was getting way too much hype.
Yeah.
I don't know who y'all is. You're generalizing. I guess that's a good straw man argument for you. Second of all, what happens during the season matters. Like what actually happens over 12 games. Like you can go from bad season to good season. So I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean. there. So that doesn't make sense. But yeah, Kyle Hamilton was a big deal before. But appreciate you, ma'am, for coming through. Ryan Crossingham, shout out to RC doing his thing. Imagine if that tackle at the end of the half at the goal line wasn't made when Pitre just ran off the field before the play was over. Seth was talking about this. If you go back and watch it, Jalen kind of sets the edge pretty nicely. Give him credit for that. Probably could have even been a hold. And then the play's still going on and he runs off the field. Fortunately, the Texans, they had him in pretty good control. Seems like they were swarming there. Shout out to DeMeco, about 5 guys. But yeah, that would have been rough. But yeah, Angelica says Jalen Pitre will bounce back and you'll all be on his nuts. I don't know. It seems like you went on his nuts. You need to go slide in the DMs or something like that. I hope he does bounce back and do his thing. I'll be perfectly good with that. I would be very happy for that to happen. That would actually be very welcoming.
You can't be a second-round pick in your second year with everybody talking about how good you're supposed to be and have a guy who was on the Ravens practice squad and was previously on the Texans practice squad come in there and play better than you on a week-in, week-out basis, because that's what DeAndre Houston-Carson has done.
Angelica needs to slide in. That's what I'm to get in there.
Can I tell you a funny
catfish though?
Can I tell you a funny DM slide question?
I'm just kidding.
Can I tell you a funny DM slide thing? So I put up the video of Matt Amendola at his locker answering questions on Sunday. I put it on X, Twitter, whatever it's called. And, most people were, hey, this guy's a bum, get rid of him, yada, yada. But then one female responded to it. She said, hey, listen, I don't care about the kick, but respectfully and politely, he's very attractive. And I was like, okay, sure. Oh, maybe fine. I figured, hey, I should have sent his Twitter handle to her. She might have slid into the DMs.
Luke says y'all are overreacting like an MF. He's just having a sophomore slump. Okay, all right.
Can I count on you or can I not? You can't count on Jalen Pitre right now. That's a fact of the matter.
So there you go. Javier, sounds a lot like the Sauce and Sting comparison. Last year, everybody was saying how badly the Texans missed on Sauce. Now that Sting is balling, everyone stays quiet. Can we look? I don't know about everyone. The question about Stingley was really whether he could stay healthy or not. I wouldn't speak too soon on that, but Stingley's been really good. And even though Pitre had the penalty, the ball skills there by Stingley were impressive nonetheless. You can't take anything away from that. He did his thing. I am with this guy, the Don. It does suck that you can't rely on Ward. Sometimes it's just a father time thing. I'm glad that they're letting him rest up and figure it out because you're going to need him down the stretch. There's a ton of value there. So we'll see what happens. I think Angelica's trying to holler at Pitre now. She's in them DMs. So what do we know about the Texans with 6 weeks remaining? And I'm asking this question to kind of set up the question that I posted on the title here. And that is, have the Texans peaked? Have we seen, and there have been, you're hearing what people say about the expectations, et cetera. Have we already seen the Texans play their best ball early on? Have we seen, is Cincinnati, the Tampa Bay game, et cetera, is that the peak? Obviously, we're excited about the future, and that's going to be fun. But have we seen the Texans play their best ball?
So here's what I would say. I don't believe they're going to play a better game than the Cincinnati game. Like they kicked Joe Burrow and the Bengals in the teeth for 2.5 quarters. And then a couple of mistakes from the offense and the offensive coordinator and the quarterback let Joe Burrow and company get back into that thing. But my biggest question is, will we see consistency on the good side from this team? I do believe they'll find a groove in the coming weeks, and they are at their best when they can get some consistency going. This is not a super up and down team where they just no-show for a week. Like, they haven't no-showed since Carolina, and really that's only their only no-show. And that was really only on one side of the ball. Like, yes, I get it. The Panthers aren't any good on offense, but the defense played their ass off that day. Like, They're not a no-show team. They just haven't been able to showcase what they can do on a regular basis. I think consistency is the biggest thing that's missing. I do believe they're going to hit a groove here in the coming weeks. But I'll tell you this much, man. If they hit a groove in the coming weeks against the defenses that they're set to play against, that's going to be a really impressive football team that's heading into those final 3 weeks of the season that are, or the 3 or 4 weeks of the season that are 3 out of 4 AFC South opponents.
Here's my thing with where the Texans are right now, and the future's it's beyond exciting. And I think the answer to this question can be yes, and they can still get into the playoffs, because right now you go 3-3 and get into the playoffs. You go 4-2, get into the playoffs, and we'll get a close look at that in a second. But there is kind of a feel after this game where I used to call it Deshaun saves all butts, where Deshaun Watson has to be perfect. The rest of your football team is going to be flawed. He's going to be running for his life. Sometimes it's going to look great, and then sometimes it just kind of hits a wall. And that's what I felt like watching CJ the other day. And I don't know if we're getting to the point, and I think Slowick's done a good job of not having, back-to-back bad games. That's the one thing I will say about Bobby Slowick. But I do think that my fear is that they're becoming almost like maybe too dependent on CJ Stroud, to where they're asking him to do much stuff. Now, maybe it's because they have to. And if that's the case, it doesn't necessarily take away the overall feeling and the overall possible result. But if you look at down the stretch, the teams you're going to face, it just seems like there's going to be some physical games. And if they're not going to be able to run the ball, then, man, you're going to have to win ugly. And it's very hard to win ugly when you can't have any semblance of a run game.
Yeah, they are probably not talented enough to blow people out, and any sort of hitch in their execution almost forces them to play a close game. Like they don't blow people out. Like they don't have that in them. And part of that's a talent thing, and part of that's just guys can't get the job done. The best part about this offense is when they're in a rhythm and then the CJ improvisation is added in. It felt like they had to rely on it on Sunday. And part of that, to me, Landry, is Seven's out there and the guys aren't protecting him early on. And so then he just has to make stuff happen. He feels like he has to make stuff happen. Like, you can't stop that from happening in the game. Like, we talk about CJ not making mistakes or the same mistake a bunch of different times. Like, that doesn't get fixed in the middle of the game. So, like, when he's out there and he feels pressure and he's got to try to make something happen, he's going to do it. That's not the best way for them to operate, though, is this improv, figure it out on the fly thing. Like, the best is when it's 1, 2, 3, boom, hit the open guy. And then every now and then you add in, hey, he's mobile. Hey, he can, that's maximizing, like maximizing the system with his skills is the way that they are most successful on offense.
Yeah. And we'll see. This Denver game, I think, is going to tell a lot. The Denver game is going to tell a lot.
This stretch run, man. Denver, the Jets are a joke on offense. That's a good defense, though. You got to hope that they kind of quit on the team before then.
No, that's a really good defense, and Cleveland's a really good defense. Like, these games, like, you look at it and you say, well, they should be able to beat them. And a lot of times we focus on quarterback. These are kind of the games where sometimes if you win them, especially at this point in the season, it hurts you, because next thing you know, you look up on the injury report and you have 8 guys banged up because they had to street fight the Jets or the Browns for 60 minutes.
And before you get to the Browns game, throw in a road game at Tennessee against Mike Vrabel, and Jeffrey Simmons just won a game because he played so good at defensive tackle. He just literally won a game. And so it's like, hey, I think, Juice Scruggs has played nice in the little action he's had. Dieter's filled in nicely. Shaq's been a disappointment. Jeffrey Simmons gets a hold of those guys. That's a guy that can ruin an entire game that you just can't plan that you're going to stop him every time. Like these 4 weeks, like the next month is hell on this offense. And like you talked about the war of attrition, Denver followed by New York, followed by a road game with the Titans, followed by a home game with the Browns, with or without Myles Garrett. That is a murderer's row to try to get through for a team that seems to always get hurt. Like this is a tough stretch that the Texans have in front of them.
By the way, are we still going to get the Jets flexed or not? Tomorrow's the deadline, right?
Tomorrow's the 12 days before. Based on the way the NFL scheduling guy or whatever it was.
I thought they would have done it during Monday Night Football if they were going to do it.
I do not believe that game is going to end up getting flexed.
Thank God. That might be the only good thing about the loss. I can actually go to the game now.
If it was the Giants versus someone else, maybe, but the league seems to love getting extra eyeballs on the Packers.
Okay, well.
And there's a little juice to the Packers all of a sudden.
Hey, I might be going to the game after all. How about that? This depends. I'll be in New York regardless, so we'll see how that goes. We don't have to break the routine. So whether or not they've peaked, it's kind of TBD. Let's get into the playoff competition in a sec. But first, let's hear from DeMeco Ryans. You want to stick around? I know you were there. Do you want to hear from DeMeco?
Sure.
That sounded real encouraging. What do you have against DeMeco?
I don't have anything against DeMeco. There could have been some better questions today.
What's up, buddy? Yes, sir. How y'all doing? All right.
Damn, he's mild-mannered.
For us, when it comes to pass rush and creating more pressure, it starts first with our coverage. Right? Rush and coverage is tied together. I feel like we can be better in coverage, therefore giving more time for our pass rush to get there. We can execute better in all phases.
It seemed like there were times where it felt like the Jags were kind of picking on Tavierre at times, but they just kept targeting at him. Were there any discussions about possibly when you got Robert to like pass it off to whoever was the Robert guy to help Tavierre whenever they were going across the field?
They made a couple plays. Tavierre, he was sticky in coverage. They made a couple plays on him, but he was fighting right to make plays there. He was challenging guys. That's what we asked for. So he was good there. We would like to see him make plays, of course, but they made plays, and that's how it happens sometimes.
But I'm curious. There seemed to be, even on both sides, there seemed to be some calls. What kind of
Talking about the officiating now.
off? Did you get any explanations? Was there any talk to the league about the officiating at all from some of these games?
We'll submit some calls, but no, and we'll let the league handle that from that perspective.
What calls will you submit?
We'll talk to the league about that.
DeMeco not getting fined.
Excited to get Denzel back. Denzel brings a physical presence to our defense that we definitely need him to step up and play for us. So excited to have him back, and what he brings to us, the experience that he brings, it will definitely help us out on defense. So happy to get him back in the building.
But a guy like CJ, again, he continues to play at a pretty high level. How much confidence does that give you guys that no matter what the score is, we have a guy like that goal to have a chance?
With CJ and what he's been able to do, I think it's part of the reason why we are where we are, what our record is because when he's played well, I think everybody around him has played together and he can make plays for us, and we've seen that, right? But from this past game, we all have to play better, right? From CJ to his O-line, D-line, linebackers, so everybody on our team has to play better. Like, it wasn't good enough from an execution standpoint all the way across the board for our entire team, right? Although we've had a lot of good things that happened in that game, made a lot of good plays, like a lot of explosives, a lot of things off schedule that we made plays on, but just overall we can still execute a lot better.
As you start turning your attention to this week in Denver and seeing all that they've been able to do in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and then you probably haven't gone through everything, but what kind of concerns you most?
What concerns you about
For
Denver?
this week, my concern is
We move.
We know we have to run it better. I think Jaguars did a really good job of closing space. When there was space, the lanes closed up quickly. And credit to them with, their defensive line, their linebackers, the way they played in the run game, they did a really good job for us. Of course, we want to run it better. We got to make sure we're targeting better, make sure we're finishing better up front with all our blocks, and we just got to run it better. And hopefully we get an opportunity to do that this week. It was good to see Juice in there get some time. I think he did a good job. He stepped in, his first action in a long time. So he stepped in and did a really nice job for us. And Juice will only continue to improve with the more reps that he takes.
He loves Juice.
He's made some kicks for you that he can continue to hold it down for you and be your guy.
Yeah, we'll keep going with Matt. We'll keep going, give him opportunities.
That wasn't overly convincing.
Do not have an update right now. Still gathering more information on Titus.
Yeah, he's on Twitter.
Of it was, I guess, CG/Bobby not having, I guess, the eyes in the right spots post snap, because it seemed like a lot of plays that the Jaguars picked things up, kind of flooding where they knew CG/Bobby were trying to attack, and then they appeared sometimes there were other opportunities on the other side. How much of that was kind of the issue, and how do you kind of, when it's happening in game, adjust on the fly?
Jags did a good job yesterday of mixing up the looks on their defense, but there were also looks that we've seen and looks that we made plays against. So we just have to be consistent with our reads, our progression, and we just have to continue to play within the rhythm and timing of our offense. That's where we have to reestablish that focus, right? And just recenter and just get back to the basics of owning our fundamentals when it comes to the timing and rhythm of our offense.
To follow up on that, what's, as a coach on the side, what's the balance of, okay, you know that it's out of structure, but the plays being made, what's the balance?
DJ talking about the balance of.
But also, we still have to get back into the timing of
Yeah, as coaches, as you go through the game, you continue to teach, right? Continue to coach them as best you can, right? And at the end of the day, players out there on the field, they're playing, they make the plays.
You guys are strong on third down offensively, and defensively kind of struggle a little bit on third down. Is there any correlation to that being good on third down, but also kind of having issues defending it?
For us on third down versus the Jaguars, we weren't good enough defensively. When it comes to rush and coverage being tied together, we weren't good enough. They executed on third down. We weren't. So we did.
Hold on. What just happened?
Versus the Jaguars, we weren't good enough defensively.
Having issues defending down offensively, and
they're on the field, they're playing, they make the plays.
You guys are strong on third down offensively, and defensively kind of struggle a little bit on third down. Is there any correlation to that being good on third down, but also kind of having issues defending it?
For us on third down versus the Jaguars, we weren't good enough defensively. When it comes to rush and coverage being tied together, we weren't good enough. They finished every snap, make
really
tough run.
Pass defense with your feet. How do you get guys to avoid penalties with the way the league's emphasized?
Talking about pass defense,
so much
penalties. Shout out to A-Dub.
It's really hard to put your hands on the receiver now.
Yeah, it makes it hard to cover guys, right? These are some of the best athletes in the world at the receiver position, so it's definitely hard to cover the guys. It starts with, getting pressure on the quarterback to speed him up. That helps with coverage, but it's also about moving your feet, right, and make sure we're playing clean at the top of the routes.
DeMeco leukemia is your cause for cases. Is that personal to you? That bringing awareness to leukemia into the American Council?
Yes, that's personal to me. Yes, it is.
What was that?
You want me to explain that one?
Yeah, what was it? What was the question there? I
It
didn't
was
hear it.
my cause, my cleats. DeMeco's is the leukemia awareness.
Oh, is leukemia? Is it special to you? That's what he was asking.
Is that personal to you?
It's your cause, your cleats.
And then DeMeco said it's personal to me.
Desmond King to come in on the streets and kind of make that play at the end of that first half.
Talking about Des King making a play.
It's an exciting play for Desmond to step in at that moment in time in our goal line package. He stepped up, and he stepped up big time, right?
Big time, baby.
Make that stop there going into the locker room before halftime. That was a huge play. All right, you felt the energy from everybody, not only on the defense but from our entire team. Right, it was a big time hit by Dez, and just happy to be able to get him back.
I'll do two more, guys. How much do you guys miss Jimmy Ford? I know
B. Scott.
probably might be back to play. How much is his
We miss Jimmy a lot. Jimmy brings
Jimmy's-
a
good
calm
question.
to our defense. He also brings big-time playmaking ability to our defense. A guy who can move around, play multiple spots, tackles really well, instinctive player. So we've missed Jimmy. He's our starter for a reason. We've missed him, man. Hopefully we can get him back here soon.
When a team like the Jags, like it looked like they also did a lot of movement, a lot of scrimmage sometimes on the back end. How difficult can that be for young quarterbacks to kind of cipher and diagnose all the?
How hard can it be to handle
With the
most-
movement that we'll get from many defenses, all defenses move post-snap, pre-snap. It's something with our quarterback, with CJ, that he's seen before. He just has to continue to go through his progression, right? Really doesn't matter about the defense. It's about us as an offense dictating and going where we want to go with the football and getting the ball into our playmakers' hands. And if we handle that efficiently, that's when we play good offense. When we get off schedule, right, and we don't play on time and rhythm, then that's what you see. You see we're kind of sputtering around there. We just have to be more efficient on offense, sustaining drives, right, continue to press forward. All right, thank you, guys.
DeMeco Ryans, bada bing, bada boom. Shout out to him. So here's how we're going to finish this off. Anything to go with there? Nothing? You good?
No. I'm good.
Okay. So I want you to rank 1 to 5 how much of a threat you think this team is as compared to how confident. We'll go confidence 5. How confident are you the Texans can finish the season above this team? Let's go 1 to 10. 1 to 10, 10 being the most confident, 1 being the least confident. The teams that the Texans are in the mix with in the wild card. And we'll just do this kind of a rapid fire type of thing. We'll start with the current 5 seed in the NFL. You've already beat them once. The 7-4 Pittsburgh Steelers. How confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10 that the Texans will finish ahead of them in the standings at the end of the season?
I'm gonna go with an 8. And the reason I'm gonna say the Texans finish ahead of them is because I believe there's a very strong chance they finish with the same record as Pittsburgh, and they will own the tiebreaker with Pittsburgh. So I'm gonna say an 8. I'm
gonna say a 7.5. Mike Tomlin always has his team ready to go. Quite frankly, if you would have told me that Pittsburgh was going to be 7-4, 11 games into this season, I would have told you you're absolutely crazy, you're absolutely nuts, and I see no way that happens. So I understand the dangers of underestimating Mike Tomlin. I also understand the division they're in. And it's a very physical division, and they're also limited at quarterback, and they have a new offensive coordinator. So I'll go 7-5.
They freaked out about 400 yards. They scored 16 points.
Yeah, I saw that. Everyone was making a big deal about it, and I was like, okay, 400 yards and 16 points. Not great. So I got 7-5. You got 8. Cleveland, man. Myles Garrett's in a sling. So I don't know how long he's going to be out. Myles Garrett right now is one of the 5 best football players in the NFL. I mean, there is no getting around it. Their defense is championship caliber. If they just had competent quarterback play, also lost Nick Chubb. This team is scrappy. It's always going to be a street fight when you face them. I think the quarterback limitations are going to catch up. Texans get a shot at them. They also they're going to have to play some tough games down the stretch. I will give this one a 7. Because I'm not 100% confident that the Texans can beat the Browns, especially if they play the way that they did on Sunday. Now, it'll look different. It's not going to you're not going to get dissected like Trevor Lawrence, but if you're going to ask CJ Stroud, if you're going to block for CJ Stroud the way that you blocked for him against Jacksonville, all bets are off. So I'm going to say a 7. The 7-5 was, as you mentioned with Pittsburgh, was because you've already beaten them and you already have that tiebreaker.
I'm going to go with a 7. I'm going to go with a 9 if Myles Garrett's out for the season or something.
Oh, if Myles Garrett's out for the season, yeah, all bets are off. Yeah.
They're going to start. They might start Joe Flacco at quarterback this weekend.
Okay.
Like that's like eventually that quarterback situation is going to catch up with like how ferocious that defense is.
Yeah.
Also, we might literally watch an Iowa-styled football game when the Browns play the Jets in the next to last week of the season. Like that might be the lowest total in the history of the NFL.
Now this one's interesting. The 6-5 Indianapolis Colts. They have the tiebreaker over the Texans right now. They still got a matchup with the Texans. Shane Steichen's done a hell of a job, man. Like, and they've dealt with a lot of crap in Indianapolis. They've dealt with a hell of a lot of crap. They had the Jonathan Taylor drama. They had Anthony Richardson in and out of the lineup. Although I kind of think that Minshew in this situation is better equipped to do what they're trying to do. They got rid of Shaq Leonard, so they got rid of one of their guys. And they're 6-5. What's your confidence level 1 to 10 that the Texans will finish ahead of the Colts in the standings at the end of the season?
I'm going to go with another 8 here, and I like the chances that someone else helps you out ahead of the Colts playing you. I mean, look, they've won 3 in a row. They beat the Panthers, the Patriots, and they squeaked by the Buccaneers. So it's like, it's not like, and Baker was out for a portion of that game as well. Like
after a QB sneak.
Titans, Bengals, the Steelers, which is a really important one in a couple of weeks when the Steelers play the Colts.
Yeah, a lot of these teams are playing each other too.
Like the Falcons, who are right there in the hunt for the NFC South crown. Like, I don't believe that week 18 is going to be like both teams can go to the playoffs if they win that game, but I do believe that will have playoff implications for either the Texans or the Colts.
Okay. My with the Colts, I'm gonna go 6-5.
So you can think they got a little juice.
I think they got a little juice. I think they're very well coached. I don't think they get credit for being well coached. And I think I don't know. They have the easiest remaining schedule in the NFL, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Now I know a lot of those teams we just named.
They could be one game worse than you for the rest of the way, and then beat you in the final week, and they'd be ahead of you.
Correct. I'm gonna go Denver at 6-5. I'm gonna say probably like a 6-5. I think this is going to be a tough game on Sunday. If you win it, you're in the driver's seat. Denver was kind of out for dead. They've found ways to win games lately. I think you can get to Russell Wilson. DeMeco knows Russell Wilson a little bit. I'm going to say I'm not incredibly confident, but I'm okay with it.
An 8. An 8, closer to a 9 for me. You're going to beat them, I believe, and you're going to own a tiebreaker over them. So I feel really strongly that they're going to putter out here at the end.
6-6 Buffalo. You want to talk about a schedule? Jesus, their schedule is rough. I just think that they are broken. Yep. And I think that of all the head coach openings, this one's going to be really intriguing because I think it's a strong possibility. I'm going to say a 7-5 here. You already have the 1-game lead. They got some tough games. I think they got Dallas, Kansas City, and Miami on their remaining 5. So Buffalo, they're one of the biggest disappointments in the league this year.
I feel this one's a 9 for me, and it's not necessarily a commentary that the Texans are that much better than Buffalo.
Yeah, like if these two teams, if the Texans face the Bills, and a gun was to my head, I'm not picking the Texans to beat Buffalo. But the damage has just been done with Buffalo. You lose to the Jets on opening week. You lose some of the games that they've lost and the manners in which they've lost it, and it just kind of all bets are off at that point.
You want to talk about a body blow situation for the Bills. They played the Broncos, the Jets, the Eagles. Then they play the Chiefs and the Cowboys. Like, that's a 5-week stretch where you're going to be just beat up. Stephon Diggs is a ticking time bomb.
He's broken.
He's a ticking time bomb ready to explode on that team. Von Miller looks washed. Like, they're in trouble in Buffalo, and that's going to be a very interesting job that comes open.
So are there any threats for you between Cincinnati and Las Vegas at 5 wins and the Chargers, Titans, and Jets? I'll be honest, for some reason I still kind of I don't fear them. The Chargers died yesterday, but I was still kind of didn't want them lingering around just because they've been a little bit battle tested, but
I felt like
teams really feel like a threat.
I felt like there was a chance yesterday could be what's called the dead cat bounce for the Chargers. Like, hey, they lost 2 straight. They upset a playoff team. They kind of, are feeling it a little bit. And then there was no bounce. It just splat. They're done. And that's going to be a really interesting coaching opening this offseason as well. Because it's going to be a good spot, but that's a really cheap owner. Like, if that guy could wave a magic wand, I think he'd hire Belichick, but he ain't paying Belichick $15 million a year.
No doubt. LS asks, best tailgate. It's enough said. Just cash app them $10. They have a beer sponsor. It's the best. Look for the fire truck in the blue lot. Enough said. Far left.
Check out their Facebook page, and they got a ton of info. They'll show you all the pictures. Enough said tailgaters. They're great.
They do a lot of great stuff too. They got the toy drive as well if you want to get down with that. My dream, I'll leave you at this. I want Texans Jags Volume 3. I want the Texans in Jacksonville against the Jags in the playoffs. Am I confident the Texans would win? I think some people kind of misunderstand how I think. Like, I want the Texans to do well? Yes. Is what I want based on my confidence level? No. I think a good rivalry is developing. I think a back and forth with CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence is developing. And I would like to see a nice AFC South rivalry on that type of stage, similar to what we saw in 2018 when we thought maybe Deshaun and Luck would go at it for a while. Colts ended up getting the last laugh there. That's what I want. It has nothing to do with any like confidence level or anything like that.
I'll tell you this much. I definitely don't want to watch the Texans team that showed up on Sunday play the Ravens, the Chiefs, or the Dolphins.
Yeah.
So
imagine them against Miami.
Miami, and they wouldn't put 70 on them like they did the Broncos, but they'd put 40 on them.
With that intermediate stuff, Jesus.
They put 4 like the Dolphins had no issues in the joint practices moving the football through the air, and they didn't have Jalen Waddle, and they hadn't quite figured out everything that they were going to do on offense. Right. And like now they've kind of figured everything out. Like the Dolphins are going to be nasty in come playoff time, and if they end up with one of the top 2 seeds and they don't have to go play some cold weather, crappy weather game, like I'm gonna watch out. The Dolphins got some juice to them.
Stoots, appreciate you. Let the people know where to find you. It is the best stuff on the beat. The Texans don't have an athletic reporter. They have better. They got Stoots doing his thing on his site, Houston Football.
Yeah, www.houffootball.com. Just type in my name, Cody Stoots, Houston Football. It'll pop up on the Google machine. You can find me on YouTube as well. And I'm on Twitter /X at Cody_Stoots.
There you go. Cody, appreciate you, my man.
Anytime.
All right, there you go. That's the Week 12 wrap here in the locker room. Subscribe, like, ride along. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Show tomorrow, 10 a.m. John McClain at 11. Exclusive interview with the player on Thursday. Fun times. It is going to get very fun. That's a big-ass game against the Denver Broncos. Thanks for coming through.
Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give. We got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number one. You don't need to try your luck.